Today I'm going to show you how to paint a pear. First, we're going to undercoat with either Folk Art School Bus Yellow or Deco Art Americana Cadmium Yellow. Now they're very close. The Folk Art has a bit more gold to it, but that's okay because pears look different. These are going to be a golden pear. And I don't clean out my brush. This one is the Folk Art School Bus Yellow. Now I'm going to, over here, going to add the, on the second pear, the Cadmium Yellow, which is a Deco Art color. It's just to show you that both work and you can use either one. Okay, we will let this dry. Now I undercoat this where I don't some things because yellow is not very opaque in craft bottled acrylics, and to get depth of color you really need to undercoat, and you let it dry because if you go over it now while it's wet, the new paint will lift the base coat. So we will let it dry. I will use my blow dryer. It helps to speed up the drying time, and then I will come back and get started. Here I'm going to show you here on this how to do the little divots. On one video I did it with the corner of the flat brush, but decided that might be a bit difficult for many. So I'm going to come in, I've loaded a liner brush, it's a 10-0/0, and you just follow your little divot lines, and this will dry, and then we're going to go over the edges with shadowing. It'll kind of go over that a little bit, fade it in, and we can come back later and redo it if we need to, or just leave it as it is. This will be kind of shadowed. You can kind of fade it out a little if you use like a medium, or tap it with your finger. It makes it a little bit lighter there. And what I wanted to show you too was highlighting. Now the base coats are dry, and I'm going to come in with my flat brush, and I'm going to dip a corner in it, in the white, just a little bit, kind of work it into your brush a little bit so it's not too globby, and then you're going to, wherever you want that highlighting, you're going to tap in a little color. And then with the other corner, the clean corner, you're going to kind of fade it in, brush it in so it kind of fades out into the yellow. If you think you need a little bit more, go ahead and just kind of tap it, fade it in. If you get somewhere you don't want, just pull it up with your finger and just kind of fade it in there. Now we're going to go over this again with some yellow. I want this one also to be highlighted, so I tap some white in there. You can use a different brush if you're afraid of getting, because I'm kind of touching too hard and pulling that white in there, or just work it if you get just the tiniest bit. Now you'll see how this will be covered when you do the next strokes. Now if you want to just tap it with your finger and kind of blend it in that way, that works too. And I want the center to be a little brighter than the outer edges. So there you have a touch of highlighting. You probably need this one to go over a little more here. And then when you come back in and you stroke on your shadowing, it'll cover over that a little bit, and it'll just be a bright spot underneath the yellow. Here I'm going to show you how I do the speckling a bit. I've got water in my brush. This is a pretty rough looking brush, but it's to simulate what I usually do with a toothbrush, which I can't find. I've dipped a corner in the paint, and I just kind of run my fingers on the bristles, and you see how it produces the little speckles. And I did that at the raw sienna. You can also dip it in a little bit of white, kind of dry it out, get it wet again. I'm doing that off camera, but tap out most of the water and then get some white, and then You can sprinkle on. It's very faint with the white. You can see it's kind of watery. So, and if you have other colors you want to put in there, maybe an olive green or whatever, to try to give it some other dimension, that works too. Here I'm going to do the shadowing, bit of shadowing. I have the school bus yellow and I have yellow ochre on my brush. And I'm going to come along the edges and just stroke along the edge and get the shadowing. My dress, oops, I actually got it in this burnt sienna. Okay, there, yellow ochre and the school bus yellow. Now it's a very tight area here, so I'll just pull it along carefully. And if you want it to come in a little bit on the edges, rub your yellow ochre in a little bit further. And you just stroke it in. And if you want to go over the middle part a little bit again, can. Don't worry about the little divot that you've painted on there. We can come back later, and I don't know if you can see how the highlight will come through that yellow, that white below, and just gives it a little bit of shine there. Now I'll go and clean my brush and do the other pair. Okay, I'm loading my brush with the cadmium yellow now and the yellow ochre, and I will blend it until they're gradually going into each other on the brush. That way it blends into one another when you do the stroke. Okay, let's see if I got enough on here, and you just go along the outside edges and press. And it's starting to get dry there, so I go back over it a little, going along the edge as best I can. Now I need to reload. And then come back along this edge. If I fill in with the middle, I'll dry brush my brush by pinching it on the rag, just picking up the yellow and just kind of fill in here with the yellow. And if you want to do a little bit more on the edge, yellow ochre, I noticed I didn't get that edge, just so come in and do that. If you want the edges, again, to come in a little bit here to give it a little more curve along there, just add a little bit more yellow ochre softly so you don't pull up the old paint. And then you want to not really clean out your brush, but load it with the cadmium yellow and then touch a teeny corner into the raw sienna. Oh, I got too much. I have to clean that. And just work it in a little bit. Make sure you don't have too much. And then you want to shadow along here where the two pairs overlap. And you'll see how you get that shadowing underneath. And I had the wrong color yellow on there, but that's okay. I'll come back with the school bus yellow and just kind of blend it in. No big deal. You can work it and fix your mistakes. And there you have that part. And if you want to come back with your liner brush to do the little divots again. To go over it and kind of add it. Warm it up or make it a little more strong there, and then still wet, but that's okay, we'll work with it. And then you come back and do the stem. Stem, I'm just going to do raw sienna. On the other one, I did the burnt umber, but I thought it was too dark. So I do the stem. I'm going to wipe out my brush on a rag, and then I'm going to come back in with a touch of white and highlight along the edge. You kind of streak it. And there you have your pears. I already showed you how to, well, maybe I'll do it again. It's a different cut, so I will do some speckling. Now I have this rough brush. I would typically use a toothbrush, but I couldn't find it. And I'm loading a bit of the burnt sienna on this brush. Make sure I don't have too much water or I'll make a big mess. And you kind of run your finger across it. You see the speckles it creates. And that was with the raw sienna. And then I can come back with a little bit of white. Rinse the brush, dry it out a little bit, dip it in the white. And see if I can get the white to do it. Just gently. The white doesn't show up as much, but it is there. Shows up more once it's dry. See if I'm getting it. Kind of makes a mess of your fingers. And there you have your pears.